My name is Leo. I'm 30. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you my sister Ella and I were close. Not best friends close, but I always thought we had this quiet, unspoken understanding. Growing up in a family where our parents could barely stand each other, we learned early on to lean on each other, to stand in the gaps left by our fractured family. Ella is 2 years younger than me, the outgoing one. The one who always had a circle of friends around her, the one who could light up a room with just a laugh. I was the quieter one, the one who fixed the Wi-Fi when it went down, picked her up when her car died on a rainy night, and helped her move into one overpriced apartment after another. I never asked for thanks, never expected it. That's just what brothers do, right? But looking back, I can see now that those little moments, those unspoken gestures, started to pile up. It's like when you leave a tap dripping slowly over time. It doesn't seem like much at first, but eventually it leaves a stain. And the stain in our relationship grew deeper with each passing year, even if I couldn't see it back then. When Ella got engaged to Ryan, I was genuinely happy for her. They were one of those couples who turned every moment into a photo op, matching flannel engagement pictures, champagne-soaked proposal parties, and live-streamed "Will You Be My Bridesmaid" brunches. I watched it all from a distance, invited but never quite included, if that makes sense. It wasn't like I wanted to be in every picture or at the centre of every event, but I started to notice this quiet, growing distance. I was always the one behind the camera, the one holding bags or adjusting the lighting. I told myself it was fine. It was her moment to shine, her time to be the star. But then, one evening, she called me. It was a cool spring night, the kind where the air feels fresh, almost hopeful. I remember the way the light flickered through the leaves outside my window as I picked up the phone. "Hey, Leo," she said, her voice bright and airy. "I know it's a lot to ask, but if there's any way you could help cover the venue deposit, it would mean so much. Just until Ryan's bonus clears, then we're all good." It caught me off guard. I had a decent job in tech, and no one else in the family was exactly swimming in money, so I understood why she'd turned to me. But it was the casual way she asked, like it was obvious, like of course I'd say yes. And in that moment, I did, without hesitation. 2 days later, I wired her $8,000. No big speech, no contract, just a short note, "Congrats. You deserve the best." And then I moved on, didn't even think about it again. Weeks passed, and the wedding planning kicked into full gear. I saw the save the date announcements on Instagram, perfectly curated with blush pink calligraphy and golden accents. I wasn't in the wedding party. Fine, maybe they were keeping it small. But then I saw the photos from the tux fitting. 10 groomsmen, 10, and 8 bridesmaids. Even Ella's college roommate's fiancé had a role. I felt the sting, but I swallowed it. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was just a logistical thing. But the closer we got to the wedding, the more it became clear that I was on the sidelines. The quiet helper, the one who was always around but never quite included. As the wedding weekend approached, I booked my flight, took the time off work, and even upgraded my hotel suite so I wouldn't have to rely on anyone else for anything. I told myself it was fine. I was being dramatic. It was just a chair, just a role in a wedding. The night before the ceremony, I offered to help set up. Ella smiled a bit too brightly and said, "That's sweet, but we've got a planner." Ryan, standing beside her, clapped me on the back with a grin that felt more like a shove. "We'll see you tomorrow, big guy." I nodded, forced a smile, and left early, alone. The next afternoon, I arrived at the venue, a sprawling lakeside estate, the kind that looked like it was plucked straight from a luxury wedding magazine. I walked in, dressed to the nines, in a charcoal suit, carrying a sleek black envelope with the actual wedding gift inside, a certified bank check for $8,000. I figured if they never mentioned the deposit again, I'd just make it the gift. A clean slate, a fresh start. The reception hall was breathtaking. White orchids, crystal glassware, the kind of soft, flattering lighting that makes everyone look 10 years younger. I took a deep breath, ready to put the awkwardness behind me, and looked around for my place card. At first I thought I was just missing it. I walked up and down the long rectangular tables twice. My cousin Jacob had a seat. So did his girlfriend of 6 months. Even Ella's yoga instructor had a place card. But mine, nothing. Not even a blank one. I felt my face flush, a mix of confusion and embarrassment, as I finally pulled aside a staff member, a kind older woman who looked like she'd seen her fair share of wedding meltdowns. She double-checked the seating chart and said, "I don't see you listed. Were you maybe invited just for the ceremony?" I blinked. I had flown in from 3 states away, taken time off work, upgraded my hotel, all for this. And suddenly I was just an afterthought. That's when I saw Clara Ryan's mother standing nearby. She had this way of smiling that felt more like a performance, like every word out of her mouth was meant to be quoted in a family newsletter. She smiled almost pityingly and said, "Oh, Leo, we assumed you'd be more comfortable in the background. We didn't want to make you feel out of place." My mind went blank. My ears started to ring. In that moment, something in me snapped. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears as Clara's words echoed in my mind, more comfortable in the background. I looked around at the beautifully set tables, the clinking glasses, the laughing guests, and realized just how deeply I had been erased. I took a step back, suddenly aware of how absurd this all felt. The sleek, matte black envelope I was holding, the one with the $8,000 check, suddenly felt heavier. I could see Ella across the room, radiant in her wedding dress, her arm looped through Ryan's as they posed for another round of perfectly choreographed photos. I turned ready to walk out when Clara stepped closer. She tilted her head, that same performative warmth in her eyes. "Oh, but there's always standing room at the bar, dear. That's where the fun is, anyway." That's when the dam broke. I felt a sharp, hot wave of humiliation and anger rise in my chest, each word cutting deeper than the last. I'd been reduced to a background character at my own sister's wedding, the very one I'd helped fund. I took a slow, deep breath. I wasn't going to cause a scene. I wasn't going to yell or demand attention. That wasn't my style, but I also wasn't going to let this pass without a response. I walked over to the gift table, a small mountain of glittering bags, oversized envelopes, and neatly wrapped boxes. I found my envelope. Sleek understated a symbol of my quiet but significant contribution. I picked it up, felt its cool, reassuring weight in my hand. Then, without raising my voice, I turned and addressed the room, my words sharp but steady. "Didn't realize an $8,000 check only buys you humiliation. Good thing refunds exist." The room fell silent. Glasses froze, mid-air conversations cut off in mid-sentence. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, the collective shock almost palpable. I met Ella's wide-eyed gaze from across the room, her veil catching the light like a ghostly halo, and held it for a heartbeat longer than felt comfortable. Then I turned and walked out, envelopes still in hand. As I reached the main doors, I heard footsteps behind me, quick and desperate. "Leo, wait," Ella's voice, breathless, urgent. I slowed, but didn't stop my heart, a chaotic mess of emotions. She caught up her hand, grabbing my arm with a strength that surprised me. "Please, can we talk about this?" She gasped, her perfectly styled hair now slightly out of place, her makeup still flawless, but the panic in her eyes undeniable. I turned, meeting her gaze. "Now, on your wedding day, weren't you too busy not noticing I didn't have a seat?" She flinched but recovered quickly, her eyes darting around as if the walls themselves might be listening. It was a mix-up. "I didn't know. The planner must have—" I cut her off, my voice low but steady. "Cut the planner excuse. Your husband's mother told me you said I'd be more comfortable in the background." Did you tell her that honestly? She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes flicking down to the polished marble beneath our feet. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, I didn't think you'd mind. There it was, that casual cruelty disguised as thoughtlessness, like it was my fault for not wanting to be the centre of attention. Like my quiet nature gave her permission to erase me altogether. I took a step back, slipping the envelope into my jacket pocket. You didn't think I'd mind being treated like a cater waiter at your wedding after funding a huge chunk of it. Her eyes widened the reality of my words, cutting through the thick layers of wedding day adrenaline and carefully curated chaos. Wait, what do you mean? She stammered, her voice catching. I paused, the truth balancing on the edge of my tongue. The deposit, Ella. The one you asked for until Ryan's bonus cleared. The one you never paid me back for. I assumed we were folding that into the wedding gift. That's why I brought this. I lifted the envelope slightly, letting the weight of my words sink in. Her face paled, the colour draining from her cheeks, as if the realization had physically struck her. She opened her mouth to say something, but I cut her off again, my voice finally gaining a hint of the anger simmering beneath my calm exterior. And before you try to say you forgot, let me be clear. I didn't need a seat at the head table. I didn't need a speech or a spotlight. I just wanted a chair, literally 1 square foot of space to exist like a human being. And apparently that was too much. She looked down her perfectly manicured nails, clutching the lace of her dress, her mouth opening and closing as she searched for words that wouldn't come. Finally, she whispered, I didn't mean to hurt you. I let out a slow breath, felt the weight of years of unspoken resentment settle into my bones. Yeah, I said, my voice quieter now, almost sad, but you didn't care enough not to. For a moment we just stood there, the distant sound of clinking glasses and muffled laughter from the reception seeping through the closed doors behind us. I could hear someone calling for a group photo, another piece of the celebration I'd been quietly cut out of. She looked up, her eyes shimmering, a single tear clinging to her lower lashes. If you just come back in, I'll fix it. I'll make them bring out another chair. I shook my head, already turning away. A chair isn't the problem, Ella. The problem is I never needed a spotlight, but I sure as hell expected a little respect. I turned and walked toward the valet, each step feeling heavier, more final. I could hear her voice behind me, desperate, broken in a way I hadn't expected. Leo, please? But I didn't stop, not even when the valet pulled up my car and asked, heading out already, sir? Yeah, I said, sliding the envelope into my jacket pocket, my tone cold, resolute. Turns out I wasn't invited. I drove away from the venue, my thoughts a tangled mess of anger, hurt, and something else. A quiet, simmering clarity. The lake shimmered in the distance as I pulled onto the main road, the last echoes of wedding music fading into the background. I didn't know where I was going, just that I needed distance space to think. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. The second buzz came a moment later, then a third. I glanced down at the screen. 3 missed calls from my mom, a text from my cousin Emily that just said, "What happened?" I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, my jaw clenched. I had spent years being the quiet, dependable one, the brother who fixed things, the son who shouldered burdens without complaint. And now, for the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of all those unspoken expectations pressing down on me like a leaden blanket. I found myself driving toward my hotel, the one I had upgraded to a suite, just so I wouldn't have to rely on anyone else for comfort this weekend. I parked, grabbed my bag, and took the elevator up to my room. The door clicked shut behind me, and I let out a long, shaky breath. I tossed my jacket onto the bed, the envelope still tucked safely in the inside pocket, and sat down in the armchair by the window. I looked out over the lake, the water dark and still under the early evening sky, and let my mind drift. It started as a trickle, small memories of all the times I had quietly stepped up, all the little sacrifices I had made without question. Covering Dad's car insurance when he got laid off for 5 months. Paying off Ella's last semester of college because our parents claimed they were tapped out. picking up the tab for countless family dinners, always with a quick "don't worry about it." I reached for my phone, opened my banking app, and started scrolling through the transaction history. I hadn't realized just how much I had shouldered over the years. It was more than just the $8,000 for the wedding deposit. It was the emergency dental bill Ella couldn't cover, the security deposit for her first apartment, the phone upgrade for Mum's birthday that she never paid me back for. I felt my chest tighten as I scrolled further back, years of small but steady withdrawals, quiet acts of support that had gone unnoticed and unappreciated. My thumb paused over a recent charge, $194.85 for a catered bridal luncheon at a trendy bistro near Ella's apartment. I hadn't been told about it. I hadn't been invited. But I had paid for it thanks to the shared credit card I had let our mum keep for emergencies. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the polished wood floors of the suite. I hadn't even known I was paying for my own exclusion. I leaned back in the chair, my mind racing. For years I had told myself it didn't matter, that family helped each other out, that I was doing the right thing, the generous thing. But sitting there alone in that too quiet hotel room, I realized something that hit me like a gut punch. Helping out and being taken for granted are two very different things. I stood up, crossed the room, and pulled my laptop from my bag. I set it down on the small glass-topped desk by the window and opened a blank spreadsheet. My fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, the cursor blinking at me like a heartbeat. Then I started typing. I listed every payment I could remember, every quiet bailout, every unspoken financial favour, rent, tuition, medical bills, car repairs, family vacations I had floated the balance for. I opened my banking apps, cross-referenced emails, pulled up old Venmo transactions. The numbers started to add up, the spreadsheet growing longer and longer as I pieced together the financial threads of my quiet, invisible support. 5 years. I had covered more than $52,700 in that time, not just for Ella, but for my parents too. And as I looked at the final total, a cold, steady anger settled into my bones. This wasn't just about being left off a seating chart. It was about being quietly erased, slowly bled dry by a family that had come to see me, not as a person, but as a safety net, a backup plan, an ATM. I closed the laptop, my mind buzzing with the weight of what I had just uncovered. I poured myself a drink from the small bar by the window, the clink of ice against glass, a sharp grounding sound in the otherwise silent room. I took a long, slow sip, the warmth spreading through my chest, and let myself feel the anger for once. Let it settle deep and steady, rather than pushing it down and swallowing it whole, like I had so many times before. I leaned back in the chair, the glass cool against my palm, and looked out over the darkening lake, the faint lights of the reception hall flickering in the distance. I didn't know what my next move would be, but I knew one thing for certain. I was done being the quiet one. I was done being erased. And as I sat there, the weight of years of quiet sacrifice pressing down on me, I realized something else. I had finally reached my breaking point. Tomorrow I would make sure my absence was felt. The next morning I woke to a line of sunlight cutting through the gap in the hotel curtains, sharp and clear against the polished floor. I sat up stretched and felt the remnants of last night's anger simmering just beneath my calm exterior. I wasn't just going to let this pass. Not this time. I made a cup of the weak hotel coffee and sat back down at the small glass desk, my laptop still open to the spreadsheet I had started the night before. The final number, $52,700, glared back at me, a brutal summary of years of quiet sacrifice, years of being taken for granted. I took a deep breath, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, and started drafting a message in the family group chat. It was tempting to drop the total without context, to just hit them with the cold hard numbers, but I wanted this to be clear. I wanted them to feel the weight of what they had done. I typed slowly, choosing each word with care. Over the past 5 years, I've quietly covered over $52,700 for this family. Rent, tuition, medical bills, car repairs, emergency flights, wedding deposits. I've been the silent safety net, the unthanked donor, the forgotten sibling at the back of every family photo. That ends today. From now on, I'm done being a convenient afterthought. Itemized receipts available upon request. I read it over twice, felt a sharp, cathartic twist in my chest, and hit send. Then I got to work. First, I logged into the shared credit card account. It had a hefty balance, thanks to years of emergency use by my mom and Ella. Charges I had always just quietly paid off, telling myself it didn't matter. I revoked their authorized user status, froze the account, and changed the password. Next, I pulled up the utility accounts, electricity, water, gas, all tied to my name, all quietly paid off month after month without a single word of thanks. I changed the login credentials, removed my email as the primary contact, and set a termination date for the end of the month. I moved on to the phone plan. I had been paying for a family plan for years, covering not just my line, but also Ella's and my mum's. I split the accounts, ported my number to a new carrier, and left their lines hanging in the digital void. As I worked, my phone buzzed on the desk beside me, notifications from the family chat lighting up the screen. First from my mom, "Leo, what is this about? Why are you acting like this?" Then, "Ella, can we please talk about this? I didn't know it was that much." I ignored them, my focus sharp, my hands moving with a steady, unhurried purpose. I pulled up my dad's car insurance account. I had co-signed for him when he got laid off a few years back, a quiet act of support that had somehow become a permanent arrangement. I removed my name as the guarantor, sent a quick email to the insurance company confirming the change, and closed the tab. I leaned back in my chair, my heart still pounding, a strange, unfamiliar mix of relief and regret settling in my chest. This was the right thing to do, I knew that. But it still hurt peeling back the layers of my own quiet complicity, realizing just how long I had allowed myself to be used. I finished my coffee, the bitter aftertaste lingering on my tongue, and stood up. I grabbed my jacket, the black envelope with the wedding check still tucked safely inside, and left the room. Down in the lobby, I asked the front desk to hold my luggage until later in the afternoon. I wasn't going back to the wedding, but I wasn't quite ready to leave town yet either. I needed a walk, a moment to breathe, to let this newfound clarity settle into my bones. I stepped out into the crisp morning air, the lake shimmering in the distance, and started walking. The paths around the estate wound through tall, whispering trees, their branches arching overhead like the vaulted ceilings of a cathedral. I let my thoughts drift, the steady crunch of gravel under my shoes, a grounding rhythmic sound. Half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. I pulled it from my pocket, expecting another round of desperate messages from my family, but it was just a single text from my dad. "We need to talk." I slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet, not today. By the time I got back to the hotel, the lobby was busier, other wedding guests, checking out, chatting about last night's celebration, their voices bright and oblivious to the quiet storm that had erupted just a few hours earlier. I grabbed my bag from the front desk, thanked the clerk, and walked out to my car. I tossed the bag in the trunk, slid behind the wheel, and sat there for a moment, my hands gripping the cool leather of the steering wheel, my heart still beating a little too fast. I looked at the envelope on the passenger seat, the one with the $8,000 check, and felt a fresh surge of anger. I had given so much, sacrificed so quietly, and for what? A place in the background, a forgotten seat at the wedding of a sister I had supported without question for years. I reached over, grabbed the envelope, and slid it into the glove compartment. I would deal with it later. Right now, I needed to leave this place, to put miles between me and the echoes of a family that had taken me for granted for far too long. I started the car, pulled out of the parking lot, and headed for the highway, the open road stretching out before me, a blank, uncharted path. For the first time in a long while, I felt something close to freedom. The drive back felt longer than it should have, each mile stretching out like the final heavy chapters of a book you've been reluctant to finish. I kept the radio off, the only sound, the steady hum of the engine and the occasional whoosh of passing cars. I needed the silence, the time to process everything I had just done. By the time I reached my apartment, the sun was dipping below the skyline, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement outside my building. I parked, grabbed my bag, and made my way up the stairs, the key turning in the lock with a familiar, comforting click. I dropped my bag by the door, tossed my jacket over the back of the couch, and sank into the worn leather armchair by the window. I took a deep breath, the weight of the past few days settling into my bones like a slow, creeping chill. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the dozens of missed calls and unread messages. My mum had left a long, rambling voicemail, her voice a mix of confusion and hurt, asking why I had cut off the power and water, why I was acting like a stranger. Ella had sent several texts, each one more frantic than the last. Leah, what is going on? Why is Mom freaking out? Did you really cancel the bills? Are you serious right now? Please just talk to me. I set the phone down without replying, my fingers suddenly feeling too heavy, too numb. I had said my piece. I had drawn my line in the sand. There was no going back now. The next morning I woke to a knock at my door. I stumbled out of bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and pulled the door open to find my dad standing there, a battered manila folder clutched under one arm, his face drawn and tired. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice rough, his eyes bloodshot. I stepped back, held the door open, and he walked in his shoes, scuffing against the faded hardwood floor. He set the folder down on my kitchen table, pulled out a chair, and sat down with a heavy sigh. I closed the door, grabbed a mug from the cupboard, and poured him a cup of the dark, bitter coffee I had just brewed. He took it with a nod, his hands trembling slightly as he wrapped them around the warm ceramic. For a long moment we just sat there, the silence stretching between us like a frayed rope, each of us too aware of how easily it might snap. Finally he opened the folder, spreading out copies of Bill's notes and what looked like a hastily scribbled repayment plan. He tapped one of the sheets with a tired, calloused finger. "I didn't realize how much you'd been handling," he said, his voice low, his eyes fixed on the papers in front of him. "Your mother and we just got used to thinking you'd always help." I leaned back, crossed my arms over my chest and met his gaze. "You got used to taking me for granted?" He flinched, the words hitting him like a physical blow, but he didn't deny it. He just let out a long, slow breath, the sound rough and broken in the quiet kitchen. "I want to pay you back," he said, his eyes dropping to the table. "It won't be fast, but I'll start this month. I've got some retirement money I can tap into early." That surprised me. My dad, the man who had always been too proud to admit his mistakes, too stubborn to ask for help, was offering to make things right. I looked at the papers, the hastily drawn columns of numbers, the rough estimates of what he could pay each month, and felt a flicker of something I hadn't expected. A small, hesitant spark of hope. "All right," I said, my voice steady but cautious. "We'll start with the car insurance. You cover the rest of the year, then we'll talk." He looked up, met my eyes for the first time since he walked through the door, and nodded. Fair enough. He finished his coffee in one long, slow gulp, set the mug down with a soft clink, and stood up. He hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the back of the chair, then gave me a small, weary nod and walked out. I watched him go, the door clicking shut behind him, and felt a strange, hollow ache settle into my chest. I hadn't expected an apology, hadn't even really wanted one, but in that small, quiet moment, I felt the first tiny cracks in the walls I had spent years building around my heart. A few days later, I came home to find a handwritten letter from Ella slipped under my door. The envelope had my name on it in her familiar looping script, a faint smudge of what looked like a tear at one corner. I almost threw it away, almost let it slide into the trash along with the junk mail and pizza coupons, but something stopped me. I carried it to the couch, sat down, and slowly tore the envelope open. Leo, it began, her handwriting shaky but clear. I know you're not ready to talk, and I don't blame you. I've replayed that day 100 times in my head, trying to figure out what went wrong, and the truth is, it didn't happen on the wedding day. It happened long before. I read the letter slowly, her words a mix of apology and self-reflection. A clumsy but sincere attempt to make sense of the damage she had done. She ended it with a simple line that hit me harder than I had expected. I never meant to hurt you, but I see now that I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I understand, and I'm sorry. A week later, I got a notification from my bank, an $8,000 deposit from Ella. No message, no note, just the transaction. I leaned back on the couch, the letter still clutched in my hand, and felt the tightness in my chest loosen just a little. I took a deep breath, looked out the window at the late afternoon sun, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement outside, and realised something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. For the first time in years, I felt seen. And I promised myself then and there that I would never let myself be erased again. Story 2, I was standing in the hallway when I heard it. It's just Mara, she'll understand. That's what my mum said, like it was obvious. Like being the one who understands was some kind of virtue. I stood frozen, listening as her voice carried through the thin walls of the house I grew up in. But the deposit my dad started. We've done that beach trip for 15 years, she said, but Eliza's wedding venue alone is draining the budget. You know how much this means to her? Of course, Eliza, my cousin, the one who was treated like royalty from the moment she learned how to fake cry for attention. My name is Mara. I'm 30 and I've spent most of my life being the family's afterthought. The one who gets it, the one who doesn't need a fuss, the one who's supposed to smile politely while everyone else gets the spotlight. When I walked into the living room, my mom looked up like I was a ghost. "Oh, sweetheart, I didn't hear you come in." "You never do," I said under my breath. What was that? Nothing, just dropping off the photos you wanted for Eliza's wedding slideshow. Her eyes lit up. Perfect. She's been so stressed about putting it all together. The venue's gorgeous, but it's costing everyone more than expected. So much that we cancelled the family vacation I asked before I could stop myself. Her face stiffened. "You heard that?" Kinda hard not to. "You know how important this is for her," she said. "And you're always so smart with money. Unlike some people." There it was again. That passive compliment wrapped in an insult. I didn't reply. My phone buzzed Rosie, my best friend since college. "Still on for drinks?" "Gotta go," I said already at the door. "Mara, wait," my dad called out. "No need, I understand," I said and walked out. Rosie had already ordered our usual when I got to our spot. "What happened?" "They cancelled the family vacation." She blinked. "The one you've done every year since you were, 15? "Yup. Eliza's venue apparently costs a fortune, so naturally the sacrifice falls on me." Rosie sipped her drink slowly. "You mean the Belmere estate?" I nodded. "The irony's rich, isn't it? You going to tell them that the venue their precious Eliza is renting for her dream wedding is partially mine, that their just Mara actually co-owns the damn place?" Rosie leaned in. "I think you should." "No way, that would just prove them right that I'm difficult or jealous or petty." She looked at me for a long second. "Or it would prove that you're successful, capable, more than just Mara." I didn't answer. My phone buzzed again. It was Caleb, my business partner. "Contracts are ready for Eliza's event. Need your signature." The irony hit me all over again. "You know, Rosie said you could play this your way, let them walk right into it, then drop the curtain." I swirled the olive in my glass. "I've been invisible for 30 years. Might be time to show them who I am." She raised her glass to finally being seen. The Belmere gates opened slowly as I drove in. Even after 2 years of part ownership, the place still made me catch my breath. The Victorian architecture, the rose garden, the perfectly manicured paths, Caleb and I had put our hearts into restoring it. "There's my favourite silent partner," Caleb said, meeting me on the steps. "Let's get this over with." You sure you want to charge your own family full price, plus premium add-ons? They don't know I own it. And they didn't even ask me how I'm doing before they cancelled the vacation. So yes, I'm sure. We headed inside, walking through the foyer to Caleb's office. A few minutes later I heard them. Voices, Eliza, her fiancé, my Uncle Paul. Mr. Jameson, her voice was syrupy sweet. Please call me Caleb, he said. Shall we begin the tour? I ducked into the side room before they could see me. The wall was thin enough to hear them fawn over everything, the chandeliers, the ballroom, the windows. It's perfect, Eliza gushed. Her dad grunted. It better be at this price. It's worth every penny, Caleb said smoothly. I heard the owner never attends events. Is that true? Eliza asked. The owner prefers to stay private, Caleb said, but they're very involved behind the scenes. I bit back a laugh. That story had been our idea. Keep the owner anonymous. Let the mystique raise the demand. They should come to my wedding, she said. It'll be the event of the year. Oh, I'm sure the owner will be there, Caleb replied. My phone buzzed my mom. Eliza's touring the venue today. So exciting. Maybe you can help with the planning. You're so good with logistics. I texted back, sure, Mom. I'd love to help with things at the Belmere estate. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of planning and avoidance. Eliza sent spreadsheets and Pinterest boards. My mum kept calling. My uncle dropped hints about just needing a little flexibility on the price. Caleb and I smiled and nodded. I approved the usual paperwork enforcing the standard policies. No pink flowers in the rose garden, no drone footage after 8 p.m, no unapproved decorations in the gazebo. Eliza hated all of it. At one point she stormed into Caleb's office demanding to speak to the owner, said she had ideas, that the owner must be some control freak who doesn't understand weddings. 2 weeks before the wedding, things took a turn. The planner quit. She said Simone was impossible to work with, my mom said in a panic over the phone. So now they need you, Rosie said when I told her. I nodded. I've gone from invisible to indispensable. You going to keep the secret? For now? Caleb was sceptical. What's the plan, Mara? I'll reveal it after the first dance. Eliza demanded the owner be introduced as part of the program. She thinks it'll be some big celebrity reveal. Caleb whistled. You're going full Shakespeare. I'm done being the side character in my own story. The day after I agreed to take over planning Eliza's wedding, my inbox exploded. Colour palettes, seating charts, a 7-tab Excel workbook labelled Eliza's Vision. She even sent a document titled Non-Negotiables. Number 1, pink accents everywhere. Number 2, owner must approve final decor personally. I just stared at the screen and shook my head. Eliza wants to meet the owner again, I told Caleb that morning at the venue. He didn't even flinch. She's persistent, I'll give her that. She's going to get her wish. He glanced up from his laptop. You're really doing it publicly. At the rehearsal dinner, I said, right after their first dance, she insisted the owner be thanked personally. Caleb leaned back in his chair and exhaled. I have to hand it to you. This is a slow burn. She's been centre stage my whole life, I said. It's time someone else held the mic. The planning meetings were something. Eliza would walk in with an entourage, my mum, her mum, a few bridesmaids, and dominate every conversation. If I disagreed, she acted like I'd betrayed her. One day she asked if we could paint the garden gazebo rose quartz, because it would pop more on Instagram. Caleb didn't even look up. Owner policy, no paint on historical structures. Eliza rolled her eyes. This owner of yours is really something else. Yeah, I said, they really are. My parents barely noticed I was running the show. My mom called me such a help, like I was her assistant. My dad, when he was around, mostly kept his head down, but something shifted during one of the site visits. My dad pulled me aside as I was checking linen samples in the reception hall. You're quiet these days, he said, more than usual. Maybe I've just learned when it's worth speaking. He gave me a long look. You planning something? I raised an eyebrow. What would I even plan? He didn't answer, just tapped the edge of a table. I remember when you were little. You used to help your mum plan the vacations. You always had a list. And this year I didn't even get asked if I was going. That made him wince. It wasn't personal. We just thought that I'd understand I finished for him. He nodded slowly. You've always been the one who doesn't make waves. Maybe it's time I did. I went home that night and sat on the floor of my bedroom, the red dress laid out on the bed like a warning. "You're really going through with this," Rosie texted. I sent back a photo of the dress. She replied, "They're not ready." I knew that was the point. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mother showed up at my house uninvited. She didn't knock, just walked in like it was still her space. "You need to return that red dress?" "Hi, Mom." "I'm serious, Mara. It's Eliza's day. You're going to upstage her." "She doesn't even know I own a red dress." "She saw it in your car." I leaned against the kitchen counter. "You came here because of a dress." "She's upset. We're trying to make everything perfect for her, even if it means cancelling traditions, mortgage payments, throwing me under the bus." She blinked. "Is that what this is about?" "It's about 30 years of being the one who steps aside." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her eyes dropped. "I actually came here to tell you something else," she said after a long pause. "What?" "Your dad thinks you're up to something. Says you're acting like I did at your age." I frowned. "How's that?" She hesitated. "Ask him about the prom incident." That was the first time I saw my mom look genuinely uncomfortable. "What did you do?" She stood up. "We all have our moments." I didn't push, but that night I couldn't sleep. Prom incident. What kind of chaos had my mum caused that still made her squirm 30 years later? The following week, Caleb met me outside the Belmere before another walkthrough. "We've got a situation." I didn't even flinch. "Of course we do. Eliza's dad is threatening legal action." "What?" "He's demanding the owner appear at the rehearsal dinner or they'll pull the contract. Claims the owner's behaviour has been evasive." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "This family, they really think they can control everything." "I can handle it legally," Caleb said. "You don't need to do this." "No," I said. "They want the owner, they'll get her." The rehearsal dinner was chaos. Eliza hadn't spoken to me in days. Her dad glared at everyone. My mum hovered like a hawk. I stayed behind the scenes, waiting. Caleb took the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to take a moment before the toasts. The owner of the Belmere estate is here with us tonight. In fact, they've been here from the very beginning." Heads turned, people whispered. "And now," Caleb said, "please welcome the woman behind this beautiful place, our very own Mara Ellis." I stepped into the room wearing the red dress. There was a long beat of silence. Eliza's face drained of colour. My uncle looked like he'd been slapped. My dad just blinked. My mum whispered, "Oh my God." "I bought the Belmere 2 years ago," I said. "I've been working in property development since I left my accounting job. With Caleb's partnership, we restored this place from the ground up." Eliza shook her head slowly. "You let us book it at full price." "I did." "You let us take out a loan." "I didn't make you. You chose this." Her voice cracked. "You did this to humiliate me." "No," I said steady. "You did that all on your own. I just stopped hiding. You could have heard a pin drop after I spoke." Eliza stared at me like I was a stranger. My uncle's mouth opened then closed again. My dad's jaw was tight. My mum, well, she looked like someone had knocked the wind out of her. I walked over to the podium, opened the folder I'd brought, and laid it down on the table between us. Ownership documents, purchase dates, my name, Caleb's. "I didn't come here tonight to start a fire," I said, voice steady. "I came here to stop pretending, to stop disappearing into the background while everyone else writes my story for me." Eliza whispered something to her fiancé. Jude didn't answer. He just looked at me, then looked at her. "This whole time she finally said you were sitting there, helping and judging us." "I was helping," I said. "Judging, no, I was watching, the way I always have." My mum stepped forward, reaching for the folder. "I don't understand," she said. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Would you have heard me if I did?" That landed hard. Her hand froze in midair. "I've spent years being the one who adjusts, the one who gets it, the one who keeps the peace so other people can keep centre stage. I'm tired." My dad cleared his throat. "You've made your point." "No, Dad, I've made my place." He blinked but didn't argue. "Jude found me out by the garden after dinner. The same garden Eliza had once tried to paint pink." "You okay?" he asked. I shrugged. "I will be." He leaned on the railing. "She's not taking it well. Didn't expect her to. She's been raised to expect everything to go her way." I didn't say anything. "She told me once that you were the safe cousin, the one who wouldn't make waves." I looked at him. "And now I know you're the only one in this family who knows how to swim." I almost smiled. The next morning, wedding day, I got to the estate early. Security footage showed a quiet venue. Eliza was already in the bridal suite. Jude was outside pacing. My mom called twice. I didn't pick up. At 10:45, a knock came on the office door. "Come in." My mom stepped inside. No makeup, hair pulled back, no mask. She sat down slowly. "You know, I used to be you. Hard to picture. I didn't mean the job or the business. I meant the feeling, the way it wears on you when everyone around you sees past you, like you're furniture." I stayed quiet. "When I was young, your Aunt Linda, she took everything. My clothes, my friends, even the guy I was supposed to go to prom with." I turned to look at her, the car. She nodded slowly. "I didn't just torch it because of a boy. I did it because I felt invisible." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Last night I realized I raised you to do what I did, only quieter." My throat tightened. "I'm sorry, Mara, for not seeing you, for making you smaller so Eliza could shine brighter." I sat back. "I don't want her to hurt. I just wanted to exist." "I think you finally do." The wedding started on time. The ceremony was beautiful, the flowers untouched, the rose garden white and full and stubborn. Eliza walked down the aisle without looking my way. Jude's eyes never left her. At the reception, people kept glancing at me, not whispering, not pointing, just seeing, like they were connecting the dots. My uncle approached halfway through dinner. "I took out a loan," he said. "I know. I said some things last night I shouldn't have." "Yeah, you did." He stood in silence for a moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "What's this?" "Repayment," he said, "for the damage." I shook my head. "Keep it." His brow furrowed. "Why?" "Because I'm not looking to settle a score. I'm just reclaiming what's mine." He tucked the envelope back in and gave a short nod. After the first dance, Eliza came to me. Alone. Red eyes, puffy cheeks, but no entourage. "I don't know who I am without being the favourite," she said quietly. I looked at her for a long second. "Then maybe it's time to find out." She didn't argue. She just nodded, turned, and walked back toward the dance floor. The night wound down slowly, candles flickering, guests saying goodbyes. I stood on the second-floor balcony with Caleb and Rosie watching it all from above. "She handled it better than I thought," Rosie said. "She'll be okay," I replied. "She's not the only one," Caleb added. Below us, my mum was laughing with my aunt maybe for real this time. My dad was dancing with a flower girl. Jude and Eliza looked like two people learning how to move in step again. "Was it worth it?" Rosie asked. I didn't hesitate. "Yes, but not because they finally saw me." "Then why?" "Because I saw myself, and I stopped apologizing for it." When the last guests left, I walked through the empty ballroom one last time. My heels clicked across the marble floor. The chandeliers sparkled above me. It felt sacred, like something had shifted. I ran my fingers across the wood of the main dining table and paused at the end. A card sat there unmarked. I opened it. "For the woman who stopped disappearing. Love, Mom." A simple note, but enough. Outside, the red dress fluttered in the breeze as I crossed the courtyard. The air smelled like roses and warm stone. I looked up at the estate, my estate, and took a deep breath. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation, and I had nothing left to prove. Story 3. I didn't expect anything different when the lawyer started reading my father's will. I really didn't. Dad made it clear a long time ago where his loyalty lay. So when Mr. Howard Dad's attorney announced that everything, property, business assets, even the Newport Beach house, was going to my sister Lily, I didn't flinch. I just sat there, hands folded, letting it all land like background noise. I was used to it. Lily, on the other hand, beamed like she just won the damn lottery. She looked the part too, clean cut, perfect posture, designer heels, the kind of woman who knew exactly how to perform for a room like this. She gave me this sideways smile that wasn't really a smile, more like a quiet "I win." And honestly, I let her have it. I'm 33 now. I'd long stopped waiting for validation from a man who never truly saw me. Dad wanted heirs in his image, polished, obedient, predictable. Lily was all of that. She married a wealthy banker, had 2 children with perfect names, and knew how to work a country club event like a seasoned diplomat. I'm the one who walked away from all that, went into marine ecology, travelled, got divorced, and apparently failed to meet every checkbox my father had written in his invisible rule book. So no, I wasn't shocked when I got nothing, well, almost nothing. There's a small box of personal items left to Emma, Mr. Howard added after clearing his throat. Photos, a few heirlooms, nothing substantial. Lily chuckled. Well, at least you've got the memories, she said, tapping her manicured nails against the table. Maybe you can hang those old photos up in your, 600 square foot apartment. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and asked the lawyer if we were done. He nodded quickly, relieved I wasn't going to make a scene. 'Cause that's the thing, I don't do scenes. But I do remember, as I walked toward the door, Lily called out behind me, "Don't worry, Em, maybe I can find something for you at the firm. Receptionist, or something part-time. I'd hate for you to feel left out." I turned back to her and smiled just slightly. "That's sweet, Lily, but I'll manage." That was the last thing I said to her before leaving the office. The drive back was quiet, just trees, fading light, and the steady rhythm of tyres on pavement. Autumn was peeking flashes of amber and red in every direction. My mom used to love this time of year. She'd say it felt like the earth was exhaling. She'd hate what happened today. When I got home, I poured a cup of tea and walked straight to the storage bench under the window. It's where I kept the envelope. 2 years ago, just before Mom passed, she gave it to me. No explanation, just her hand cool and frail gripping mine as she said, "Don't open this until after he's gone. Promise me, Em." I promised. Tonight I opened it. Inside were documents, dozens of them, legal papers, investment reports, bank records, a letter too written in my mum's neat, graceful handwriting. "My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, your father is gone. I know how this day has probably unfolded. I know what he's done, or rather what he's left undone, and I know you're not surprised. While he was building an empire, I was building something else. Quietly, patiently, inspired by you. The way you chased your passions, the way you stood firm when your father dismissed your work as a hobby. I saw what he never could, that you were right, that the world needs people like you. So I began investing slowly at first, sustainable tech, ocean restoration projects, alternative energy startups. I listened when you talked, and I believed in what you were doing. What I built is now yours, entirely yours. It's under your name spread across diversified assets, trusts and holdings. Lily can't touch it. Your father never even knew. Use it well, build the future he couldn't see coming. Love you always, Mom." I sat there for a long time. Then I read through the financials. They were staggering. My mother, the woman everyone thought of as the quiet wife, had been managing an empire of her own. Not just wealth, but purpose. Wind farms, coral reef research, green shipping initiatives. It was everything I cared about, everything my father mocked. She did this for me. She did it with me in mind. I didn't cry, I thought I would, but instead I just felt centered, like something had clicked into place. My phone buzzed again. It was Lily. "Let's do dinner. Talk next steps. I think Dad would want us to stay united." I replied, "Sure. Come to my place tomorrow morning. I've got something to show you." Then I locked up the envelope, poured another cup of tea and opened my laptop because I had work to do. Big work. Mom didn't just leave me a safety net. She left me a launch pad. The next morning, Lily showed up at 10 sharp in another designer dress, holding a takeaway coffee and wearing her usual expression of concerned superiority. She walked in, glanced around my modest home and gave me a forced smile. "You know I've been thinking, you don't have to keep living like this. We can find something for you. A nice little condo, maybe something close to downtown. You'd need help affording it, obviously, but—" "Lily," I cut her off, "sit down." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is this a serious talk?" I nodded and gestured to the dining table where I'd laid out Mom's documents in neat labelled stacks. Lily gave me a patronising smile, then started leafing through them. I watched the colour drain from her face. At first she looked confused, then suspicious, then outright angry. This is a joke, right?" she said. "No, it's real. She couldn't have done this. She didn't even finish college." "No," I said. "She was just smart, smarter than any of us realised." Lily stood, hands trembling. So what, you're a billionaire now because Mom secretly funded your tree-hugging projects? Pretty much. You're bluffing. I pointed to the notarized trust documents, bank verified, lawyer certified, fully transferred, yours to verify if you want to make a fool of yourself. She paced in place, stunned. So what are you going to do with it? She asked finally. Start your own business. I already did. This just scales it. She stared at the documents again. We could combine resources, she said. Think about it, Morgan Industries and your eco-empire. A perfect blend. I tilted my head. You mean I front the money and you keep the power? That's not fair, she snapped. This isn't what Dad wanted. No, I said, but it's what Mom did. And frankly, her plan makes more sense. Lily's eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. I shrugged. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it on my terms. She left without another word, just silence and stilettos on tile. And for the first time in years, I felt free. This wasn't about beating her, or even proving my father wrong. This was about building what mattered with everything my mom gave me. And we were just getting started. I didn't sleep much after Lily left. I wasn't restless. I wasn't anxious. I was clear, wide awake in a way that felt new, like something heavy had been taken off me, the weight of trying to prove anything to anyone, especially to people like my father or Lily. The next morning, I called Sarah Bennett, my mother's old friend and financial attorney. I had only met her once, briefly years ago, at a gala my father didn't bother to attend. But I remembered her eyes. Sharp, calm. The kind of woman who never wasted words. She picked up on the first ring. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. I read everything I said. I need your help. Her tone shifted slightly more serious. Then let's get to work. We met at her firm later that afternoon. The office was modern clean, a long way from the heavy wood and oil painting vibe of my father's lawyer. Sarah greeted me like she'd been waiting for this moment. Because she had. Your mother planned this years in advance, she said, pulling out a folder already labelled with my name. She knew exactly what would happen after your father passed. She also knew what your sister would try to do. Challenge the trust, I asked. Worse, Sarah said. Discredit you. Call into question your mother's mental fitness. Claim coercion. Invalidate the holdings. I nodded slowly. It sounded like something Lily would do, polished, in public, ruthless behind closed doors. She left evidence, Sarah added, documentation, voice memos, financial records, emails. She wanted to be unshakable. And she is, I said quietly. Sarah smiled. There's more. She opened another folder and slid it toward me. Your mother anticipated that Morgan Industries might try to block environmental initiatives, especially if they threaten the bottom line. So she placed legal barriers, escrow conditions, partnership restrictions. It's all here. I sat back in my chair. Mom hadn't just passed me a fortune. She'd passed me a strategy. Later that week, I flew to Portland to meet with the marine research team my mother had been quietly funding for the past 5 years. The lead scientist, Dr. Mika Tanaka, greeted me with cautious curiosity. I always wondered who the real donor was, she said. Your mother was generous, but private. She believed in what you're doing, I said. So do I, and I want to expand the work. She blinked. You're not here to pull funding. Quite the opposite. We toured the facility, modest, efficient, driven by purpose. There were posters of coral reef regeneration, renewable ocean sensors, and bioplastics from seaweed. No suits, no branding, just focused, passionate work. I felt more at home there than I ever had in any Morgan boardroom. Afterward, I sat with Dr. Tanaka at a tiny cafe by the harbour. We made a plan, increased funding outreach programs, global scaling. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged, doing something real. That night, my phone buzzed. It was Lily. Lily, we need to talk. It's getting messy. I didn't respond. The next morning, another message. Lily, investors are nervous. People are asking questions. Can we meet? This time I replied, come by tomorrow, 9 a.m, but come alone. She showed up early. No makeup this time, still stylish but less curated. Her expression was somewhere between concern and exhaustion. I don't want this to become a war, she said, stepping into my living room. Dad wouldn't have wanted. You mean the dad who left me out of everything, I said gently, Let's not rewrite history. She sat down, exhaling hard. The board is panicking. Our sustainability rating tanked. Some of our biggest investors are reconsidering. You built a company on outdated principles, I said, and now the world's catching up. She stared at the table. I didn't see it coming. That's the difference between you and Mum, I said. She did. Lily rubbed her hands together. You could help us. You have the capital, the leverage. If we combined forces... No, I interrupted. You're not looking for a partnership. You're looking for a lifeline. Silence. I've got my own plans, I said. We're expanding the ocean restoration projects, adding renewable energy scholarships, investing in communities. We're not doing what Dad did. Lily looked up. So this is your revenge? No, I said simply. This is my work. 2 days later, my uncle, one of Morgan Industries' board members, showed up at my door. No appointment, no warning. I'm not here to argue, he said. Then why are you here? He looked tired, like someone who'd been in denial for too long. The board knows what's happening. They've seen the impact, the value shift. They're reconsidering the company's direction. Should have done that years ago, I said. He didn't disagree. Some are even suggesting a merger with your holdings. I laughed. Of course they are. They ignored me, ignored my mother, and now they want in. Emma, he said a little softer, we need your help. I shook my head. No, you need relevance. I already have a mission. I'm not interested in carrying a legacy that never wanted me. He didn't argue, he just nodded and left. In the days that followed, I kept building. We launched new grants, hired young researchers, partnered with global conservation groups. Every day felt like momentum, the kind that doesn't scream but moves like water. Steady, certain. Lily kept texting. Lily, Dad's name is still on everything. The brand is tanking. Lily, I didn't sign up for this. Lily, we should have worked together. I finally replied, we still can, but not on your terms. She didn't answer for a long time. Then finally, okay, let's talk. Lily came over late on a Thursday. No heels, no handbag. Just her in jeans and a worn sweater like someone who had finally run out of performances. She sat down at my kitchen table and folded her hands like she was still waiting to be called on. I didn't come to argue, she said. Good, I said. I don't have time for it. She gave a small, dry laugh. I used to think I had everything figured out. Dad's rules, his approval, the structure, it made sense to me. Because it worked for you, I said, not unkindly. You never had to fight to be seen. Lily looked at the steam rising from her tea. I thought I earned it, she said, but now I'm not so sure. When the foundation shook, everything cracked, and I realised I didn't build any of it. I just inherited the scaffolding. I let the silence stretch a little. You weren't just overlooked, she said. You were built out of the story. That was the first honest thing she'd said in a long time. We talked. Not strategy, not business. We talked about Mom. About the years we both missed the signs. How she had been playing the quiet game, gathering, planting, growing something real, while everyone else chased surface winds. I didn't see her, Lily said. Not really. She saw you anyway, I said, and she still left a path for you. Lily frowned. What do you mean? I stood, went to the desk, and pulled out the envelope Sarah had given me just a week ago. Mom left this, for both of us, but the second part, that was for you. I handed her the letter. Lily read it slowly, lips parting slightly as she took in the words. If she shows growth, humility and purpose, give her a chance to do something meaningful with it. Not for the family name, not for status, but for the future. Let her help rebuild the balance your father never understood. She trusted me, I said, but she believed in you too. Lily's eyes brimmed. She blinked quickly. I don't deserve it, she said. That's not the question, I replied. The question is, what will you do with the chance? Over the next 6 months, we rebuilt something together, not Morgan Industries. That structure was too hollow, too rooted in the past. Instead, we created a new foundation, a real one, focused on environmental education for underrepresented kids, rural schools, tribal communities, immigrant youth, anyone who had never been handed the language of the sea. We called it Second Shore because every shoreline deserves a second chance. So do people. Lily ran operations. Quietly, she didn't put her name on it. She wanted to do the work. I don't want a legacy, she told me once while sorting through grant applications. I just want to leave something better behind than I found. That was enough. The headlines faded. The family name softened. Even Morgan Industries, what was left of it, dissolved into partnerships or sold off into greener arms. A few parts got absorbed into companies with actual ethics. The Morgan name didn't vanish, it just changed shape. A year later, I stood on a windswept bluff in Washington, watching the first full-scale ocean filtration station go live. Kids were there, dozens of them, laughing, asking questions, learning. Lily stood off to the side, clipboard in hand, wind pulling strands of hair from her ponytail. She looked more like Mom than I'd ever seen before. After the event, we walked the beach together. Seaweed underfoot, driftwood stacked like quiet sculptures. You know, Lily said Dad always used to say legacy is what you leave behind. I nodded. He meant money. Yeah, she said, but Mom, she left roots. She left something that grows. We didn't speak for a while after that. Just walked, just listened. The waves kept coming in like they always do. Steady, certain. Today I keep 2 pictures above my desk. One is of Mom kneeling in her garden, smiling at something you can't see. She's not posing. She's just there, present, alive. The other is newer. Lily knee-deep in a tide pool, holding up a plastic bottle with a group of kids pointing and laughing around her. Her smile isn't perfect. It's real. That's the thing about change. It doesn't come fast, it doesn't come loud. It comes like the tide, quiet, inevitable. You either fight it or you flow with it. I chose to flow. And now I build things that last.